My name is Richard Taylor and I'm the Johnston Journeys project curator, and today we're going to look at our chest of wooden Johnston block lettering printing type. Frank Pick commissioned the calligrapher Edward Johnston to design this typeface for the Underground Group in 1916, and Pick wanted something which was completely different from any advertising that you saw on the Underground, so it would stand out immediately to allow passengers to know where they were going on the network. And he chose Edward Johnston, who was actually a calligrapher. The lettering is all even strokes. It's called a monoline typeface. Each stroke of the lettering is the same width as if it's produced by a broad-edged calligrapher's pen. And the chest of type we have here is all wooden type. This is the kind of printing type which is produced for posters and display purposes, because that was the idea behind the Johnston block lettering. You can't make printing type for posters out of metal because it would just be too heavy. You couldn't lift the printing frame. So printing type for posters is cut in wood, and this is a chest of wooden type. What I particularly love about it, the people who made printing type always put their maker's mark on the letter A. And if we look at the bottom of this letter A, you can see a little set of characters, S.B. & Co., which is Stephenson Blake Company, who are a Sheffield company who got the contract to produce the printing type for the Underground. The Johnston lettering was unique to the Underground Group and later London Transport, so these printing chests had to be kept in the printers' offices, and the printers had to sign a contract that they wouldn't use this type for anybody else's work apart from London Transport. So each of London Transport's printers would have this kind of chest stuck somewhere in the back of their office, and it would just be pulled out every time they needed to do a poster for London Transport use. Well, of course, by the 1980s, printers were moving away from movable type into photo typesetting and later digital typesetting. So these chests of printing type became less and less used, more and more forgotten. And by the end of the 1980s, they were being thrown out en masse. And luckily, the museum rescued one of them from the Bone Hall press. This is the only complete chest of this type that I'm aware of. I mean, possibly some others may survive, but unfortunately most of them were broken up. And often if you go on eBay, you can find people selling the individual printing blocks for decoration. And the other thing that particularly amazes me about this is that this huge physical object of these great lumpy things used for printing, this is now just a digital file on your computer. Physically, this thing doesn't exist anymore. It's just out there in the ether. You can download the equivalent of this chest in a couple of seconds from the cloud, and you can have more fonts and typefaces on your computer than ever these traditional printers could have imagined. The other thing about this type of printing type is not only the design of it is a piece of craftsmanship, but actually how it was used by the printers required a degree of craftsmanship. The lettering is cut in blocks of wood, and there's no spacing at either side of the blocks of wood. So it was up to the printer to space the lettering properly in the printing frame. And what's interesting is we look at some of the early posters in Johnston type in the London Transport Museum collection, and it's quite obvious that the printers were having a great deal of difficulty getting used to how to space this lettering properly. And some of the very early posters, specifically some by George Morrow, it's actually quite higgledy-piggledy is the letter spacing, and very much would have not been approved of by Edward Johnston. He once said with regret that the Underground liked his typeface because they thought they could get more letters per line than any other typeface, but that's not how Johnston wanted his lettering to be used.